Gemini, and welcome to your May 2023 general tarot reading. This time around, I'm using the Prisma Visions tarot deck, and for the guidance card, I'm using the Woodland Warden's Oracle. I'll link the decks in the description below the video if anyone's interested in using these on their own. So let's get started. So, what we have in our current energy, this is like the energy of what's now, is the Six of Wands. And the Six of Wands is traditionally a victory card, but it also indicates that someone has been through the ringer, essentially. So it's not just like empty victory, it's victory after a battle, or victory that was hard earned, let's say. So that could be where you're at right now. Like you've reached a goal, or you've reached a point that could be like the culmination of a lot of hard work, or you've received some accolade that was really hard earned, or you're on the verge of such, let's say. What is below that? So the Knight of Chalices, which is the Knight of Cups in the traditional tarot spread. The Knight of Chalices is somebody who has fought for, let's say, the emotional landscape required to succeed. So this is somebody who has been disciplined, diligent, worked hard. Knights are the battlers of the tarot deck. So when I see a knight, it means that somebody is fighting for something. So because it's a chalice card, you could have been emotionally battling to succeed in this position, or it could have drained you emotionally to get to where you are currently. It's not a bad energy, the energy of battle. It's just, again, it ties into the idea that you fought for where you are currently. Despite that, despite the Six of Wands being a victory card or something achieved, there is kind of a negative energy here for you in the blockage position, which is the Three of Swords. And the Three of Swords is like a heavier emotional energy. Even though it's a sword card, our emotions are tied to our thoughts. So it could be that you're thinking about something in a negative way that's leading to a bitter emotional situation. When I see achievement with this as the blockage, it leads me to believe that either what was hard fought for and hard won, it maybe wasn't what you thought it would be, or it didn't live up to expectations, or you could be sitting around going, what now? And maybe there's sadness in the victory, in that like you've achieved it and now what? You don't really kind of know where to go from here over that. Sometimes when we are in a space of fighting for a goal or fighting for something to work out, when we finally achieve that goal, it can be like a bittersweet space to be in, because you've achieved it and now you have to close that chapter and move on in a different way. And that could involve, let's say, leaving people behind, leaving like maybe former coworkers or classmates, or even relationships behind in order to pursue a new path. And that could be where this kind of heartbreak energy is coming in. But the fact that it's sitting in the blockage position indicates that this could prevent you from moving forward to a good place, even though there's good energy in what's coming in here, and like more negative energy kind of leaving, like stressful energy. The Ten of Swords is what's leaving, and it's not a pleasant card. But if you're going to get an unpleasant card in your spread, on its way out is the best place for you to find that, right? Or in a blockage position even, because blockage is something you can change, something that you can deal with. It's not something out of your control. So the fact that this energy is moving out is a good thing. But it also speaks to a lot of like stress, deadlines, people's opinions, things weighing you down. And maybe now that this victory is won, you don't have to deal with that anymore. There's a lot of ways that could play out too. Like this could be you were in a program and you've graduated. Now you don't have to listen to your professors harp on at you about what they think of your work. That's on its way out. It could be that you got a promotion. Now you don't have to listen to all the bullshit feedback from your boss anymore, you know? Or it could be that you've liberated yourself from a relationship or a bad living situation, and now you don't have to deal with that shit anymore. Either way, it's a positive, and it's hurtful for you to have to move on, but it's a good thing. What you have in the position of what's surrounding you. So this is energy surrounding where you're at now, but this is also energy coming from other people. And it's stagnancy. And it's a lot of ruminating and overthinking. And could be a lot of people's opinions coming at you, even though that's indicated here as what's leaving. People could be throwing their opinions at you of what you should do next. And that could be keeping you in a stuck position. It could be also contributing to this blockage. Because look at this whole row. Swords, 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 right? And the fact that swords are on their way out is an indication to me that maybe not to take this to heart. Like what you're thinking about, what other people are saying to you. This is like circular thinking. And it'll keep you trapped in a mental prison. So it'll get you nowhere. So there's a little bit of a blockage in that as well, even though it's what's surrounding you. So be knowledgeable of that. I don't like to say be weary, because that sounds like a fearful word. It sounds like people be afraid of this thing, you know, but really just be knowledgeable about it. Acknowledge its existence. Be aware that it's there. But don't necessarily be fearful about that. Because we all know what Master Yoda says about fear, and it doesn't lead to good places. There's like a whole trilogy of Star Wars movies that tells us why fear is bad. And there's even a whole trilogy of Dune movies that tells us why that's bad too. So let's move over here. Okay, I bounce around in my readings a lot, so I don't necessarily go in card order. But here we have the advice from the higher self, or the advice from source, let's say. So here we have the Eight of Pentacles, and this is like diligent, hard work on things that you can control. Pentacles are a tangible suit, so things we perceive with our senses. Hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting. Tangible things. And what the universe is saying with the Eight of Pentacles, and another sign got this in their advice from the higher self as well. I can't remember which sign it was. It might have been Cancer. Could have been Taurus. I'm not 100% sure. But this card also came out in this exact position for another sign. And this is the advice of like focus on what you can control, essentially. And maybe like it looks like what's coming in are a lot of action cards, so things that you can control. But this card down here, I perceive this card, the Eight of Swords, to be even more negative than this card, the Ten of Swords. And the traditional interpretation is that this is like one of the worst cards that you can get. So the Eight of Swords isn't by comparison that bad, but it is worse for you in this spread because of where it's positioned or situated. So if you have all these like negative doubts coming at you from other people or from your surroundings, you can't control that. That's like, you can't explain why people do the shit they do or think the things they think or give you the advice that they give you or tell you whatever they're going to tell you. You can't control that. But you can be knowledgeable about where that advice is coming from, because again, I think I said this in another reading too, like similar messages coming out that people may not have bad intentions when they tell you what you think you should do, but they're telling you what they would do in your situation. And that doesn't always like equate to what you should do in the situation, because you aren't them. So even though that's what they would do in the situation, great, but you're not that person. So like, what would you do? And that's really summarizes the advice here, is like, what are you going to do? What are you in control of? So it's saying focus more on that rather than things that are beyond your control. Okay, so where have I been and where am I going here? Let's go down here. So this is like advice from the higher self, and then the opposite corner is like a caution. So maybe like a positive and a negative. Cautions aren't always negative. They're just, again, saying be aware of this. And the Seven of Chalices is the card of dreaming. It's the card of wishing. There's a lot of wishes and dreams floating around in the card here. Like, see all these different cups? Cups represent possibilities. So this is the card of possibility, right? The caution with that is to don't allow yourself to become stagnant because you're floating around in the clouds. This card is saying focus on what is possible, right? And this card is saying don't get caught up in too many possibilities. So they're kind of connected, even though they're two different suits. Too many possibilities, bad. Focus on what you can control, like what is possible, good. So if you pay attention to these two cards, like that's enough, honestly, to get you to a good spot over here in the outcome. Again, I haven't found a word that better summarizes what this position is. I don't really like the word outcome because it seems so final and absolute and set in stone, and I don't really feel that's how energy works. So I say, like, this is where you're headed based on where you're coming from. But that can change if you change here, or you pay attention to the cautions, or you don't follow the directions. Okay. Now, this energy, or the energy of the Three of Wands and the Ace of Wands, is like what's coming in the outcome. These are like big energies, even though they're not major arcana cards. They're like big possibilities, right? And maybe that's where some of this energy comes from. Like, don't get starstruck by the possibilities, maybe, is what it's saying here. However, there is a lot of advice here about maybe playing it on the safer side and focusing on reality or what is possible. So let me explain myself further. Here you have the Temperance card. And this is the position of what is your hopes and what is your fears, which tend to be the same because like all positivity, a hope, it has a shadow underlying it. And like all negativity or a fear has a positive light to it. So sometimes they're the same thing. And in this case, it's Temperance. And if we remove this card for 1 second, put it off to the side, and we squish Temperance over next to the Seven of Chalices, this is another, let's say, card of being measured, and it's directly in the same line as the card of too many possibilities. Don't get caught up in too many possibilities. So Temperance is a card of being, of moderation. You're being tempered. You're being modest. You're being, I don't want to say cautious, careful, maybe. So in terms of a hope, that's like, what you kind of want is a moderation here, but there's the potential for being dazzled by something. Even in the Three of Wands represents 3 possible courses of action, or 3 possibilities. Which of those possibilities is dazzling, or which is too good to be true? What are people telling you to do? Is it in line with what you want? Or are you taking a path because it makes you look good? Or it buys you some social capital? Who knows? Don't get caught up in something dazzling here because it's not maybe as good as you think. Again, you've already come out of a situation where something was hard won and maybe it wasn't what you thought it would be, right? So that's already something that's kind of happened. Now, this is saying don't let that happen again. But there's the potential for that with the Seven of Chalices. and the Temperance card. So Temperance as a fear is, what if I play it safe and I miss out on something great because I played it safe? So there's always that. This is like, I want to play it safe. That's my hope. But my fear is, what if I play it safe so much that I cheat myself out of something good? Which is a valid fear to have, right? Especially when there's a lot of different possibilities involved. However, again, that card is in line with this card, is in line with this card on this axis. The Eight of Pentacles is saying focus on what is real and tangible and what is possible. Are these possibilities realistic? If they're not, then are you really cheating yourself out of them because they're not realistic, right? So it's normal and it's natural to have a fear of, I might cheat myself out of something because I'm being too cautious or too modest. But this card is saying, really look at the possibilities without rose-colored glasses, because even though you might feel like you're cheating yourself out of something, that something may not be worth as much as you think it is. Okay, so again, I've kind of touched on the Three of Wands a little bit. It represents possibilities or paths. The card really doesn't say anything about the nature of the possibilities or paths, but the suit does. The Wands aspect says it's something that you'll have to take action on. So you're going to have to choose a direction here. The Ace of Wands. Aces in tarot, I interpret, not all tarot readers interpret it like this. Not to say that other people are wrong, it's just they interpret it differently. Some people interpret aces as a blessing. I interpret it as a task. So this is the universe giving you the task of Wands. And the task of Wands is to take action on something. So here's 3 paths, and the task is to choose a path. And what you choose, again, the paths are not good or bad necessarily, but I don't know, something's a little bit too good to be true here, one of them at least. So just pay attention to that. In your task of choosing, make sure you're cognizant of this and of this. Okay, so to finish off the reading, your guidance card, which is like additional guidance from your higher self guidance. It's separate from, additional and separate from. Here we have the snail and the huckleberry, and the message underneath is trust in the invisible. So when we have dazzling possibilities here, trust in the invisible is kind of saying, like, even though something might not seem dazzling, there could be invisible qualities to it that make it just as good, if not better, than the one that's really showy and positive. You know, dazzling things are showy. They look good on the outset, but things that are not as shiny have invisible qualities that make them, again, just as good, if not better. So trust in the invisible is kind of reinforcing this message, what is possible. But I did a little bit of research on the symbolism of snails and huckleberries. And I guess we all know snails are slow, and like slow and steady wins the race, kind of. They're slow paced, but they're consistent. So slow progress, maybe pace yourself on your way to choosing a path or a direction. There's maybe no rush in making a choice. It's like maybe you need time to think about or investigate the reality of each possibility before taking the leap. There is the energy here of the Ace of Wands is like take action, right? But this task doesn't require you to take action immediately, right? When you have a guidance card underneath of a snail, it's take measured action, take educated action, investigate your possibilities. The huckleberry, though, is like a really good luck plant. I read that people burn huckleberry leaf smoke over their lottery tickets, and that's kind of interesting. I never knew that before, but people burn huckleberry leaf smoke as a blessing to infuse with good luck. So I don't know if you have any huckleberries, but it could be cool to like maybe meditate on the possibilities. Maybe burn some huckleberry leaf smoke and see if that inspires anything. Do your research before, like, I'm not saying smoke it or breathe in the smoke, but like maybe use it as part of a ritual to arrive at an answer, because it is good luck. So, all right, that is the message that I have for you this month. I'm going to link again the decks in the description below the video, and I also have a link to my shop and my Patreon page in the description below the video, so check those out if you're interested. But otherwise, have a great month.